We're doing children's classes and junior youth groups, not for the sake of religion, but for the sake of building a brighter future and a better community. And how can we work together and look past all our differences to build that community. Sometimes you don't realize how much of an impact you have until years and years and years later. I hope and I pray that I will live to see that impact and that change, but also not being attached to that. My name is Daniel Gill. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. Currently, I serve full-time, and I'm a full-time student and a personal trainer. My hobbies are, of course, playing basketball and just being active, going on hikes and studying, if that's considered a hobby. I was born in Toa Alta, Puerto Rico. I was born in 1994. I have a mom and a stepdad, and I have a ton of siblings from my actual dad. So in total, I have 15 brothers and 4 sisters. My dad had many wives before my mom. And unfortunately, when I was 2, he passed away. So the rest of my siblings are from my stepdad. The majority of them didn't live in the house, so that was a plus, because a lot of them are older than me. Like my oldest brother right now is 58. There's 5 of us who live in the same house. It's the stereotypical Caribbean lifestyle. Everything's a bit more family oriented. The beach is 30 minutes away. And on top of that, the beaches are crystal clear. My brother Matt and my brother Guillermo, we're a lot alike, and we're all a year apart. It's definitely an interesting and sometimes challenging, complex, dealing with the same personalities, especially strong-headed and strong-willed personalities. In middle school and high school, the only factor that kept me making sure that my grades were semi-decent was because I played basketball and I did other sports. I had A's, everything like that, but when I realized all I had to have was a 2.0 to play sports, I was I can sleep in class a little bit, I can do all of these things, as long as I have that bare minimum so that I can play basketball and other sports. At 13, I decided that I wanted to live with my older brother, and we moved to New York, and then we moved to North Dakota for 4 months and realized that wasn't the place where we wanted to be, so we ended up moving to Florida. He had restaurants in Georgia and South Carolina, and I eventually moved to South Carolina and got into a lot of trouble being a youth. When I came to the States in Florida, I ended up getting beat with baseball bats. And it caved my chest, and I nearly died. And it was all because I seen something that I wasn't supposed to see. When you're injured and hurt, you immediately seek revenge, which is stupid, right? But being young, you're like, oh no, this is the right thing to do. And then from then, as comes with gang culture, a lot of illegal and legal things you do. And that's a couple of reasons why I ended up getting arrested. I got arrested a couple of times because of that. Like I ended up, like when I was 15, serving like 10 months in jail. When I got out, my brother had left and I had nowhere to go. And I had family that said that they would be there when I got out, but a week before my release date, they said that they could no longer house me or take that burden. I ended up becoming a quote unquote property of the state and immediately had to be in foster care in the group home, where I could then like attend regular school and but still be monitored. After I got out of that, for a little bit, like I had to live at like a facility for a little bit, and then ended up getting into trouble again due to like gang affiliations, and luckily, like the judge gave me an ultimatum, and the ultimatum was either go back to jail or go live with your mom. And I opted out to go live with my mom, who happened to live in North Carolina. And then I finished out my high school in North Carolina. Because I hadn't lived with my mom for several years at that point, I felt like an adult, so I acted as such, and of course, like that always causes conflict. I then got into some more trouble right when I got to North Carolina. Luckily, by the grace of God, the judge, yet again, was like, "Hey, I'm gonna let you off with a warning." Like his reason for that was because I wore a suit to court, and that's it. I was still playing basketball. Even when I was in the group home, when I went to regular school, like always doing basketball. I got a scholarship to play basketball for a university in South Carolina, and I messed it up. Like at that point in my life, I had a very bad temper, and I ended up getting into a fist fight with a teammate and other people, and we ended up all getting on academic probation, and I lost my scholarship. I lived with my mom for a little bit, and due to arguments and differing personalities, I ended up getting kicked out, and I was like homeless for 6 months. I worked 3 different jobs, hardly got any sleep, saved up money, and eventually purchased me a house within that 6 months. It was horrible, but it was a place to stay. And shortly after that, there was a dog in the neighborhood that was running around. The dog almost got hit by a car. I ended up taking it in and walking around the neighborhood trying to find the dog's owner. And I told individuals that, like, hey, if anyone's missing a dog, like, just send them to my house. The next morning, I had work at 3 a.m. I decided to call out, but luckily I didn't go into work because a lady knocked on my door at like 6 a.m. She showed me a picture of the dog, and I was like, yeah, I have your dog. She talked to me. She was very thankful, and she invited me to a Christmas party. Her and her family's house was like on like this dirt road with a bunch of trees and everything like that. So I was like very nervous. And at the time, like, I still had my fiance, so I brought her along with me. We ended up having a devotional and just talking. And then they was like, you know, like, anytime you want to like visit with the dog, things like that, like, you're more than welcome to. And then on Christmas Day, the dog got out again. She came to my house, and literally, like, me, her family, we ended up looking for the dog, ended up not finding it, and then like went back to their place, and there was a bunch of different Baha'is there, and they were just like having a devotional. She told me about book 1 because we were talking a lot about different religious philosophies. Some concepts in the later sections of the book didn't vibe with me, but out of politeness, I was like, let me just finish this book and that'll be it. Weeks later, she asked me, she's like, hey, like, there's actually 2 other books in the sequence. Do you want to take them? Because of her and her family's hospitality and things like that. And she asked if I was free. Like, I wasn't gonna lie to her and be like, no, I'm not free. So I begrudgingly took book 2. We'd start with prayers, do several sections of book 2, stop, and then do several sections of book 4, and then stop for the day. During book 4 is when I recognized the Bab, because of like the level of sacrifice and things like that, and it really touched my soul and moved me. And not a lot of things moved me spiritually, at least up until that point. And I recognized, like, hey, like, this is the same type of thing that Christ went through. So this must be true. I believe that, like, in order to truly say that you have faith, you have to take a step in the darkness and hope that, like, God will make sure that your feet land firm, right? So I was like, I'll become a Baha'i, right? But at that point, I hadn't recognized Baha'u'llah. But I was like, if this is like the natural progression, then because I've recognized Baha'u'llah, like the Bab, I immediately have to recognize Baha'u'llah. Literally, before every study circle, we would read parts of the Akdas and really dive deep into it before the study circle. Eventually, we finished the Akdas, and she gave me the Egon and 7 Valleys to read on my own. As we were doing 5 and 7, she was like, hey, now it's important for you to know the history of the faith. So before every study circle, we would read a chapter of the Dawnbreakers. I'm glad that she did it that way, because as I was going through the Dawnbreakers is when I actually recognized Baha'u'llah for the very first time. And I was like, oh, yeah, like this was actually needed. Like I get this same feeling that I felt about the Bab and I felt about Christ while reading the Dawnbreakers. My family motto has always been like, as long as you're not like trying to force your beliefs on someone else, you believe what you believe, and if that's your spiritual journey, that's your spiritual journey. Of course, like eventually I want to see if doing a PhD is right for me, so that I can show youth and junior youth who come from that same type of neighborhood, same type of background, that there's more options than what's like immediate access to you. And that like even though someone can go through all the hardships, they can still like achieve the highest level of education and evolve from that. When I was informed by the Baha'i who taught me the faith, like, hey, like, it's actually against the laws to do this and this and this. Of course, like in a very like frank and loving way, I immediately cut it off cold turkey. As far as anger and all of those other negative emotions, like with my first roommate who I was serving alongside, like when it didn't pan out and things got very heated and everything like that, luckily, like I had a Baha'i friend who I was close to. Literally one night we sat in the car and he talked to me about like how anger is a secondary emotion, and how like at times we have to like not react on impulse and really like think level-headed and clear, so that we don't say or do things that contrary to actually like how we actually feel and how we like the type of person we are. So from that point on, like of course like he gave me different tools and things like that to really like contemplate, and over time like I started doing that. So anytime I would get like angry or upset, like I wait a few moments, even sometimes a day, so that I can like process everything out and then like actually talk it out in a very even tone. It doesn't matter what has happened in the past, as long as your heart is still searching, it will come to you like a breeze.